The Doomer Bloomer podcast is a community for the resurrection of good ideas. We profile the hero's journey in weekly episodes and teach people about the 10 pillars framework for success in life, business, and relationships. Our mission is to find and help all Doomer Bloomers with mental health issues, poverty mindset, lack of resources, and those left behind in this world. Tune in weekly with Will S. and occasionally John Wynn as we have deep conversations with guests about the hero's journey, clown world order, and the resurrection of good ideas. To help support our community, go to www.thedoomerbloomerpodcast.com/support to become a member today. And remember, we are the cure for COVID-19. All right. Welcome back to the Doomer Bloomer podcast with Will S. We're talking about the hero's journey, the 10 pillars framework for success, life, and business. Specifically, health, wealth, and wisdom are the three main. Today on the podcast, I have a special guest all the way from California. He divides his time between California and Texas. Runs his own coaching company, has been a serial entrepreneur for over 10 years. Without further ado, I would like to introduce James Pyle. How are you doing this afternoon, James?
Howdy, I'm doing awesome. Will, how about yourself?
Can't complain. Up here in the Okanagan, enjoying some air conditioning. It's
Awesome.
It's just about 35 degrees in the sun, Celsius.
Wow.
Do the conversion. It's probably like 80
Wow.
in American Fahrenheit. Um, so yeah, I invited you on just because, well, I mean, we've been chatting back and forth on the Matchmaker platform. You're kind of an accomplished guy, I would say. Looks like you've had your own struggles in the past with some addictions. Um, I would call you a classic doomer bloomer in a sense. How would how if you were to describe yourself uh, like someone who's meeting for the first time, how would you describe James Pyle? What
Yeah,
you
wow,
do, who
that's a
you
great
are?
great question. So, I'm a man of faith. And actually I'm a man of faith from a lot of failures and uh struggles and hardships that I've been through in my life. I started off early life. Some of the earliest memories that I have actually, I grew up in a very physically abusive household. My father, when I was very young, was a practicing alcoholic, and I was the youngest of three kids. And so we took beat downs on the regular. And at the time when I
Wow.
was growing up, it was at the time when I was growing up, it was really, really difficult because I didn't quite understand exactly what was happening. And, as an adult, part of my journey and coming to a place where I am now of my awareness of the purpose of life and what my mission here is on earth, I'm actually very, very grateful for everything that I experienced throughout my life, especially the hardships and the failures, because those have actually been the things that have molded me the most to be the man that I am today.
Yeah. I mean, when so like my basic understanding is like you went to traditional college, but you didn't really follow the traditional route, right? You went to college and then kind of forged your own path, right? Which is
Yeah,
kind of
very
cool.
true.
Um, so tell me a little bit about um, do you think that the college experience helped you, or was it a complete waste of time?
Yeah, this is a great question, and it's a little bit different nowadays. I'm not super old. I'm 36. So when I was going to college was, the early 2000s. And quite frankly, the reasons why I went to college was to actually make connections and to network. I definitely always was interested in the education, but more so than that, I was interested in being able to get aligned with people and resources that would allow me to actually begin my entrepreneurial career as an adult. And I was very fortunate in 2006, in the spring of 2006, I was given an award, the Loyola Marymount University Undergraduate Entrepreneur Student of the Year Award. And that was really exciting because at the time, the school was ranked 16th in the nation for their program. And so it translated to me as being ranked 16th in the nation for up and coming college entrepreneurs. And it was really that experience that gave me the confidence to then begin launching my first venture the following spring while I was in my final semester getting my undergrad degree, taking 18 credit hours. And I decided it would be a good idea in February of that year to go ahead and kick off and get into the entrepreneurial world.
So let me just kind of like piece the timeline a little bit together. So you're 36, so 2006, that's 10 years ago, right?
No, that's 15 years ago.
15 years ago. So
Yes.
you would, so when did you start college? 18, 17?
Yeah, I was 18. It was the fall of 2003, and I completed it in the spring of 2007, right after I had turned 22.
Okay, so you're just about 5 years older than I am. Um, and So do you feel that entrepreneurship like was always a spark inside of you, or is this something that you had to develop? Uh, what really what really drove you towards that direction?
Yeah, so I actually grew up with my parents owning and running a local family owned pharmacy and drugstore in the small town that I grew up in, Eastern Washington State. And I actually just had this drive. I'm not sure where it came from, other than I believe I was born with it. I always had this drive to go out and get things done. And I do know that part of it, as an adult, I've come to the understanding that part of that came from some of my trauma from childhood, that I actually believed that I wasn't good enough, and that the way to be worthy and to be valued and to be appreciated was to go out and achieve. And obviously, as I know now, that that's not the actual case, but that was the pattern that I was in at the time. So my entrepreneurial career began when I was about 8 years old. Myself
Okay.
and a buddy of mine, we used to take a garden rake and a leaf rake, each of us, and we would put them across the handlebars of our bicycles, and we would ride around town and just knock on people's doors and basically just cold call, cold knock people and ask them if we could rake their leaves for 20, 30, or $40, depending on how big their yard was. And that just translated into, when by the time I got into high school, I just knew that I didn't really want to work for anybody for my entire life. I knew that I had this calling inside me to carve my own path. And I've also had this interesting thing inside of me that I've always just gone the other way from like the norm. Whatever people were into, I just wasn't into. A small example of this is I never saw the Avatar movie. I've never seen any Harry Potter films, and I've never even seen any Lord of the Rings films. And for really no other reason than the fact that just everybody was into it. And so I just thought, you know what? I want to skip that programming. I'm going to miss those ones and do my own thing. So that was a big part of what led me on this path.
And were you always a man of, as you say, a man of faith, or is that something you came into, or was that like indoctrinated early?
Yeah, so I grew up at a very early age in the Presbyterian church until about halfway through grade school, and then we went to the Lutheran church. And I went through the confirmation program when I was, I think, in like 8th grade. And it was sometime after that, when I was like in ninth or 10th grade in high school, I was like, we were in the middle of saying the Lord's Prayer, and the organist was pressing the key to make it sound like a bell was, that the bell was ringing, and it just like everybody was chanting in this monotone fashion. And I just like, in that moment, I was like, whoa, this, like, am I in a cult, or like what's going on here? So that was actually at that point that I really began to question things. And I always remained a believer in our creator. and I always pursued it with prayer. However, throughout my adult life, especially into my 20s, as I got into a few different business ventures, I actually became consumed by carnal, fleshly, worldly pursuits, possessions, money, and status. And that actually led me down a bit of a interesting path where I actually was addicted to alcohol and Adderall for many years. And all of that came crashing down in the summer of 2017. I lost everything. And I was in a bit of a delirium from the drugs and alcohol that I was taking. And I had pulled some pretty bad partners into this real estate investment venture I was building at the time. And long story short, I basically helped them walk me right out of my own company because I was just so out of my mind and bent in my head. And, it was very shortly after that, I received this revelation from the Lord that the reason what had happened to me was actually everything that I had been doing my entire life got saved up and pressed down and delivered back to me all in one big fat dose. And I didn't like the taste of it. I had never gone out intentionally to lie or cheat or steal, but just in the course of doing business and being in sales all of my life, that was what I did a lot of times. I would stretch the truth to get deals done and to make money and to be the man. And basically, what happened is I had cultivated this experience where I pulled in these people that lied and cheated and stole from me. And in those moments, I realized that not only do I never want to feel this again, I don't ever want to be the cause for anybody else to feel any of this. And that was really a turning point for me where I really pressed into my faith. And it has me on the path that I am currently of seeking Christ following faith. I usually stay away from religious terminology, things such as Christianity and those sorts of things, because I actually believe religion is very restrictive and limiting and causes people to feel less than. I believe in a Bible-based faith, and at the same time, whatever a person wants to call our creator, it's up to them. If a person refers to it with a different name or a different line of thinking, I don't try to impress my particular belief sets on anyone. I'm more than happy to share with others who are curious, but I'm not the kind of person that's out there trying to tell people this way or not at all, you know? And I think, unfortunately, a lot of Christians, at least in my experience and other people's experience, have done that, and that's why a lot of people are kind of pushed away by the Christian church because you got these sort of self-righteous people, and it's like, who made you the judge? So,
Yeah, I could definitely agree with you there. Um, uh, I think being open-minded towards um, towards towards your being open-minded towards your faith versus just following dogma. I guess I think that kind of would sum it up. I think there's a lot of dogma out there, like this is the way that we have to do things, and there's no other better way to live your life. And I think that's kind of very restriction. It's very Luciferian in nature. If it binds or restricts, it's Luciferian. It's a definition of Luciferian. So if we could try to get away from Luciferian principles and thinking, I think we could have a much better integrated society overall. Um, I are you are like you so like what is your daily routine look like right now? I know you're kind of a habits focused guy. Like you kind of your profile says practicing integrity, self discipline, and you like to help people thrive in their vocation. So what does integrity and self discipline look like to you, and how would you recommend helping people to thrive in their vocation? Like what would that look like for you?
yeah, awesome question. And, in fact, without going too far down, this trail, we could probably do a few episodes on my daily routine because this is a place where I've spent a lot of effort. I've invested a lot of time and energy into, but just to touch on some of the top parts of it, like what you said, I believe it starts with integrity. And for me, integrity is keeping my word to myself first and foremost, as well as to others. And one of the places where I had an upgrade several years ago, and that I always encourage people in, is that when I set my alarm for when I wake up in the morning, I get up, because I believe that if I don't wake up when I set my alarm for, that I'm actually breaking my word to myself before I even get out of bed in the morning. And so at night before I go to sleep, I determine, hey, do I need more rest tonight? And if I do, I allow myself the extra hour or two of sleep. But when that alarm goes off, I get myself up out of bed and I start moving my body, because in order to change our state, we have to change our physiology. So one of the best things to do is, as soon as the alarm gets up, just get up out of bed and start moving around. So first and foremost, that's one of the things that I do for practicing my integrity. Uh, Next, we talk about discipline. Discipline to me is one of the top habits to have in life. Discipline will carry us when motivation is lacking. Motivation can be a great thing, but discipline is the thing that will actually drive us to execute and get the things done that we need to get done in order to achieve our goals and our plans. So for me, things that I do to build discipline is I have a spreadsheet that I use, and it's called the 12 Sacred Choices Tracker. And so each and every day, I actually practice 12 habits that actually will lead me to be my best self. And every month, at the end of the month, I sit down and I figure out what are the things that I need to be doing in the next month that are going to actually build those habits into my life that will carry me beyond. So for instance, one of my daily habits is that I do some breathwork exercises after I wake up in the morning. I do a breathwork meditation. The program I'm currently using is called Soma, SOMA breathwork. It's very powerful, very enlightening. If anybody's ever been interested in meeting their higher self, I recommend Googling this stuff and checking it out. It's pretty phenomenal. Some of the other things that I do is I get up and I usually drink at least a liter of water as close to waking up as I can, to make sure that I'm hydrated. And, we lose a lot of hydration during sleep. And then I have a supplement routine that I follow. I take some essential aminos and some electrolytes. And then I also take a nootropic called Qualia, which is a great nootropic full of all kinds of herbs and adaptogens. And one of the other things I drink is something called Tian Chi. And it's actually a form of adaptogens that help to restore the adrenal glands and just really provide good, natural, focused energy in my brain. So, after I get that going on, I usually go for a 2-mile walk, do some journaling quite often. And then I sit down and I write down my schedule for the day. And I go through, what I'm going to be doing for the day. And then I just get after it. And then in regard to encouraging others in thriving in their vocation, a lot of this has to do with self-awareness. Here in Western cultures, oftentimes people have like a career or a job. And I actually believe that the best way to be happiest in life and to fulfill our potential is to discover what our vocation is, meaning what is the lifelong purpose and thing that we're meant to be doing here on earth. And the way this translates into my life is specifically in the entrepreneurial realm and what I call kingdom entrepreneurship and kingdom coaches. So that's the realm that I'm in. And that is what my vocation is to raise up and equip the next generation of kingdom entrepreneurs with the principles and tools that they need to do that, to thrive in their vocation as a kingdom entrepreneur.
So when you say kingdom entrepreneur, uh, lots of I would say lots of imagery comes to my mind when you say kingdom. Are we talking about royalty? Are we talking about the kingdom of heaven? King, like what do you mean when you say kingdom? A kingdom coach
All
or
of
a
that.
king?
Yeah,
All of
totally.
okay,
Yes. So royalty in the sense that we are of a royal priesthood as God's children, and
okay,
really more specifically, kingdom in terms of God's kingdom. So some of the identifiers in our world that identify a kingdom entrepreneur is it's a person of faith. They have faith in Christ. Um, it's a person who is a servant leader, meaning that they
okay.
see their job as an entrepreneur and a leader as to equip everyone else in and outside of their organization with all of the skills and resources and tools that those people need to actually become better than we are. Something else that defines a kingdom entrepreneur for us is a person who is always looking to add value in each and every situation. They want to really find a way to make everything a win-win. And in fact, oftentimes, kingdom entrepreneurs are least concerned with what their slice of the pie is. They're actually trying to figure out how to give everybody else the biggest slices. Another identifier is giving back. People who are aligned with an organization or some sort of an outreach that's going to be giving back and using the funds that they are collecting in their business from their revenues to be able to further a good, positive message of love in this world. For us, we are aligned with an organization called Missionary Support Network. And what this organization does is it actually provides sponsorship to pay for missionaries to go to these sanctuary retreat facilities, usually from anywhere from about a week to 4 weeks when they're coming back from their mission trip. So they can just have time to process and, go through things that occurred while they were on their mission assignment, and also get the healing and prayer and just quiet space with our creator that they need before jumping back into the first world where they've come from. And then the other key indicator of a kingdom entrepreneur for us is honesty. It's a person that believes in conducting business in an honest and ethical way. And usually that means you're not going to make the most money, because the people out there who aren't always the most honest, sometimes they make more money. But at the end of the day, what's important to me and what's important to our team is that, we can look in the mirror at night when we go to bed, before we go to bed, when we're brushing our teeth, and we can be happy with who we are on the inside and the way we conduct ourselves. We can lay in bed at night and we can actually go to sleep knowing that we're doing the right thing each and every day and we're living to the higher calling on our lives.
And would you say that the reason that you had your, for lack of a better word, that doomer period you had at 32, is it because you were not following these principles? Would you say that that led you down the path to having, your partners basically become serpents and basically stab you in the back? And so you were basically, the energy that you were putting out there was attracting the like energy back to you. Is that what you think happened to you during that period?
One 100%. 100% it was. I was so full of myself, full of ego, full of pride, and self-serving. I was literally trying to find how I could get the most in any and every situation. And the business that I was building at the time, we were actually generating very significant revenues. Like the week that I walked out of the company, we had done over 200K in profit in 1 week. We had a very small team, so we were making good money. But the fact of the matter is that the reason behind it, I had completely lost touch with. I was so bent in my drug delirium that I was just so self-serving and focused in a narcissistic way. And anybody that's ever been around an addict or an alcoholic will know that that's how addicts and alcoholics operate. They're very self-serving, they're very narcissistic, and they will do anything to get their fix. So yeah, I was receiving back what I was projecting 100%.
And would you say that was part of your? Would you say that was part of your hero's journey? Uh, as you were going through the cycles of your life. Is this isn't? I mean, we often have the experiences in our life in order to teach us something. So, do you feel like this is something that you needed to have in order to teach you the lesson to become a better person, in a sense?
Yes, 100%. I'm glad you asked this, Will, because if I had not had the experience I had, I would probably be more screwed up now. Like, I can't even say probably, I know 100%. And I actually believe that the Lord was showing me through this experience. He was showing me the people that I was involved in were very wealthy. Like, I'm talking extremely wealthy, like top 1% of the top 1% type stuff. And they had all the things that this world has to offer, right? All the things money can bring. And I really truly feel like the Lord was showing me that if you want those things, you can have them. Just know the unhappiness and loneliness and horrible life that you're going to have doing those things. So I actually believe that the Lord was able to like give me this, if you will, out of body experience or out of life experience, and kind of show me down the track where I would be 30, 40, 50 years from now had I continued in that pattern. And I would have had plenty of money, I would have had plenty of things, but I would have not been fulfilling my role that I was created for, and I would have been terribly unhappy. And, I'm not saying that having money is a bad thing. It's not at all. This is actually a mindset that we work with a lot of kingdom entrepreneurs, because religion has actually tried to tell people money is bad. It's not money that's bad. It's when we allow money to become the false god. It's when we allow the pursuit of money and the things money brings us. That's actually when money becomes bad. And it talks about in the Bible, the pursuit of money, the love of the pursuit of money is evil. So money is a very awesome thing. It's a very powerful spiritual tool. It just matters what we're worshiping. If we let it become a false god in our life and that becomes the thing we're worshiping, it's going to lead down a dismal road.
Well, it'd be like the cult of money, or the cult of false riches, at the expense of your own morality and your own ethics. And that's something that I talk a lot about on this podcast. Um, is integrity is one of the 10 pillars that I have, or one of the 10 frameworks that I work through. Um, so you don't want to, as you say, put money and wealth and status above your ethics, morality, and your integrity, because as soon as you do that, um, you actually are changing like your own vibrational frequency. You're changing how you interact in the world, the sort of people that get attracted to you, and the type of life that you want to lead, right? um,
Yeah, completely.
and would you say that you're overall, like, maybe you're not as materially wealthy as you were? Would you say that overall that you're, happier, more fulfilled, or like more aligned with your purpose than you were 5 years ago, 6 years ago?
Yes,
Is that
completely. So I had to start over from scratch. I had to start over from ground zero. And
yeah,
what you're talking about there, I love how you're talking about frequency and vibration, because I'm very big into this realm, and manifestation and attraction. And one of my best friends, you shared the saying with me a while back, many years ago, that be careful what you wish for. It might not be what you really want. And that's what you're talking about there. When we start to lower our ethics and our morals and we lose integrity, it starts with a small little deviation from the path. And this, in fact,
mm,
is what the enemy loves to do. The enemy loves to bring us off just a fraction of a degree way up here, so that down the
mm,
line, we're completely in the ditch. But we didn't even realize it. Yeah, because we just came a little bit off track up here. And human beings, we adapt. So when you came a little off today, and then you're a little more off tomorrow, and then 4 months down the line, you don't see so much how far you've deviated from the path, but we're way off course. And so, yeah, for me, I'm in a different monetary situation than I was, but my riches, the way I define riches and wealth in my life, is different now. And there's an interesting guy by the name of Ramit Sethi. He wrote a book called "I Will Teach You to Be Rich," and it's
yeah,
really, the core of the book is a lot of fundamental financial principles. But one of the things he talks about in there is define what wealth means for you. And through my experience, the things that are most important to me are, number one, my faith. Number two, my relationships. And number three, my happiness. And people say, well, that's relative. And how do you quantify your happiness? And I'll tell you how. It's literally how I feel on a moment to moment basis throughout each day. And I am so much happier not creating such a crazy, pardon my language, shitstorm in my life each and every day, right? Where now my life is in a much different place at a much different level. At the same time, though, I actually believe I'm far wealthier than I was in the past. And I actually am on track financially to become far wealthier than I ever was in the past. And that has to do with, for me, playing the long game and prioritizing my faith and my relationships and my happiness each day. And that leads me to a place where I am fully wealthy and experiencing our Creator's lavish, unlimited abundance in every area of my life, not just in money. There's a funny saying of something to the effect of like, don't envy people with money because that they might be so poor that's the only thing they have abundance of.
Yeah, and I like how you said, like, because I have like a new a newfound appreciation for faith, and like I say now, like trust in God for, or creator or source or whatever you want to call it. Trust in God, source, creator, for true security and true wealth, and don't worry about how to attain it, um, because it all starts like from a sense of faith, and that everything is going to turn out exactly the way it's supposed to turn out. It may be a bumpier road than you were expecting, um, but it's a journey, not a destination. And I feel like a lot of people get caught up on the destination of things versus um, enjoying the moment and being here now. And this is something that I've had to like cultivate within myself because I'm guilty of it. I live from a place where, oh, I would love to see this podcast be a top 10 or millions of subscribers, or you know let's get to that next level of success. But if I get too wrapped up in the where I want to be versus where I am right now, how am I going to enjoy the present moment here talking with James? How am I going to enjoy just, you know, hey, it's a beautiful sunny day, I should go for a walk. Not how can I attain more? How can I get more? Um, the Tao Te Ching, which is another, I would call it a spiritual or another way of viewing reality, says you have to get to a place of from striving to arriving. Um, if you're always striving, you're never going to enjoy yourself where you are right now, because you're stuck in the cycle of I don't have enough, there isn't enough, there will never be enough. You have to flip the script and think, I have enough, there is enough, there will always be enough. Things are fine just the way they are. And it's definitely something that you have to keep reasserting, right? Because we have a tendency as human beings to be, we always fall to the limitations of our cognitive understandings, right? Where, like you said, if you're cultivating the daily habits, uh, you let those daily habits reinforce the positivity, not the negativity, right? We can train our subconscious to I guess, I guess you have a pretty zero, like, what's that called, uh like a temperance. It's like you don't drink alcohol anymore, you don't take drugs anymore. But I would say that that's probably a daily affirmation, something you have to be like, I'm not going to do alcohol or take Adderall today, right? As a because I've also struggled with addictions myself, alcohol specifically, and I have found that it's not just a switch that you can flip, right? It's something. It's a process that takes time and energy. I don't know how do you feel about the, like, you overcoming your addiction? Is it a daily thing, or is it something that you have to keep reasserting every day?
Yeah, this is great stuff. A lot of people have had to deal with addictions and alcoholism and these sorts of things. And I wouldn't even necessarily say addictions and alcoholism so much as just lack of self-control. Because that's what it
Yes.
boiled down to for me when I realized it. It was like, it wasn't just an addiction to a particular substance. It was just complete lack of discipline and complete lack of self-control. And, what you were talking about there a moment ago, a lot of it comes down to programming. A
Yeah.
lot of Western societal programming tries to tell us, and even religion tries to tell us we're not good enough, right? When in fact, we are just perfectly complete and whole the way that we are and the way that we were made by our creator. And it's a lot of undoing of this programming that we received, whether it be, from school, from the government, from, social media, from celebrities, all of these things causing us to feel like we need to do more and this sorts of things. At the end of the day, we're human beings, not human doings, right? So,
Yeah.
in regard to, the addiction and Adderall and alcohol, there was a phrase that I learned a while back, and it's that, when you get to a certain level in life, you stop asking what's wrong with what you're doing and you start asking what's right with what you're doing. And that was the place that I got to. Like, so I was actually fortunate. I had stopped drinking alcohol 2 years prior to actually having my crash. When I crashed, I was heavily addicted to Adderall, and quite frankly, I was taking a cocktail of pharmaceutical drugs. I was taking Adderall and hydrocodone, which is Vicodin, and Soma, which is a muscle relaxer, and Xanax, which is basically to go to sleep at night. I was in such a delirium from the substances I was taking. And you hit the nail on the head there, Will. I think a lot of people struggle with, and it was someplace that I struggled too. Initially, we think, oh my gosh, I can never do this thing again. It's too much, right? We just have to
Yeah.
focus in, just not for today. Just let me just not do it today. And then when I wake up, if I'm lucky enough to be alive tomorrow, then I'm going to wake up and I can make the decision tomorrow to just not do it for one day. And I think that that's key. And it has to do with practicing the habit. One of the, for me, a lot of my addiction recovery is from my faith. I will tell you, though, and share with your audience that I did check out AA and NA. I grew up in it because at a certain point when I was growing up, my dad became involved in it. And my brother had been through the program. And my brother's like, gosh, he's got to be about 15 years sober right now. And he's a different man because of it. But it all starts with one, and it all starts with making the choice to do better. For me, I got to this place where I just realized there has got to be a better way to live life than this. I was miserable. I hated it. I wasn't happy being me. And now I'm fortunate enough to be at the opposite spectrum of that, where I'm stoked to be me. I love myself and I like myself. And that has led me to love and like my life. So especially if somebody is challenged with this kind of a thing, or if it's something that they've dealt with in the past or are dealing with currently, I just encourage them to just, do it for a day. Try it for a day, try it for a week. For me, I'm 6 years, August 1st will be 6 years of no alcohol for me. And yeah, straight up, sometimes the thought tries to come in my head and be like, dude, you should drink a glass of wine, or like I grew up working on a farm in the heat, and that's when I started drinking beer. So whenever it's really hot outside and I'm doing anything physical activity wise, in the back of my mind, I'm thinking, oh, the taste of beer would be refreshing right now. But I know that it's not worth it to me. And in all likelihood, I probably could have just a glass of wine or a few beers here and there, but I'm not willing to take that chance. So I made a deal with myself. I started drinking alcohol when I was about 13. And I had 2 years in my mid 20s where I didn't drink. And then I had gone back to it when I was living in Australia and Thailand and just acting like a fool. And I basically made myself a deal. At the age of 30, I figured that I had had about 15 years of drinking alcohol at that point in my life. So I told myself, I said, okay, James, you're going to give a go for 15 years without it. And if after 15 years, your life is not phenomenally better, then you can go right on back to it. But you at least got to put in the equal amount of time doing it or not doing it that you did doing it. And I'm only not even 6 years in, and my life is phenomenally better than it ever was. So I'm just going to keep this going one day at a time. Like you said, it is a choice to make every day, and it is something that it never fully goes away. I have people that are mentors in my life that have 30 and 40 years of sobriety. And guess what? That little devil still tries to come into their head and go, hey, man, it's cool. Nobody will know. You could have just one. But it's a matter of staying committed to that. And it goes into integrity and self-discipline, like we talked about earlier, keeping my word to myself. I know I could go off and get loaded and nobody would know about it, but the fact is I know about it. I have this crazy strong conscience. Sometimes maybe I wish I didn't have such a strong conscience, but I love it because it keeps me on the straight and narrow.
Yeah. um, so you kind of touched on that. So what are the best resources so far that have helped you along the way on your path?
Yeah. So for me, first and foremost, it's scripture. It's the
Yeah.
Bible. I have a version called the Life Application Bible, and I really
Yes.
like it because the bottom like third of the page is all footnotes, like in modern day language, explaining what the heck is this saying. So for many years, even when I was still in my sicknesses of my addictions, I would be waking up and reading the Bible in the morning. And, it might sound crazy to some people, but that was just something that I was doing. It was one of my daily habits. And it was sometime around the time or shortly thereafter that, I had my crash and burn and kind of bottomed out, hit rock bottom. I received a revelation from the Lord that I needed to not just read it, I needed to read it out loud. And I needed to speak this cryptic programmatic language over my spirit each day. So that's what I began doing. And that's still what I do to this day. I still read my Bible out loud every morning. And even sometimes in the Life Application Bible, I still don't understand what it's saying. But I realize that it doesn't really matter necessarily if I know what it's saying always. What matters is that I'm speaking this language out of my mouth because the enemy cannot operate in truth. The enemy is the father of lies. And so when I speak this truth from scripture out of my mouth, the enemy and his demons, they have to vacate. They can't, it's literally worse than like nails on a chalkboard to the enemy. So I know by speaking this out of my mouth first thing in the morning, one of the first things in the morning, I can help to clear out that spiritual warfare from my day to keep myself aligned and on the path. So, first and foremost, it's scripture. Something else that really led me to where I am is focusing in my physical health and my brain health. I really believe that the path to mastery of self discipline and all these things, it starts with our physical and our brain health. So I exercise almost every day. It doesn't have to be a crazy workout. Like you said, an exercise could be going for a walk in the sunshine, getting up and moving the body. And in terms of brain health, I take good quality fish oils every day, and I follow a pretty strict nutrition protocol of avoiding sugars and processed foods and corn, because, in my experience, those substances are extremely toxic to both gut health and brain health. And the other part that I'll share in here, something that's been very helpful, is being very, very conscious and intentional in the people I'm surrounding myself with and I'm exposing myself to. And there have been a lot of friendships that I've had to just let go of and move away from because I really, really loved the person, and I still to this day do, but they are toxic for me. And it's being able to have that strength to know that, this person is just not healthy for me. The things that they are into are against what I am into. And so I had to change.
Yeah, and that I mean, and you can say that out loud, but letting go of those toxic people, that's probably the hardest, because I've had to do the same thing over this past year. Letting go of those people that aren't they're not in alignment with where you want to go, and they're not bad people. It's just they're not the right people for you. And I would say I've been very blessed this past year. Like I've gone through my own cycle of a mental health crisis, my own addictions, and then what's really helped me this past year is just getting back into the creative mode, making this podcast. I actually have 3 podcasts that I do, um, and um, and you were talking about like what is my what is your vocation, like thinking of your life as a I had a guest on thinking of your life as a master craft and crafting the best version of your life with the tools available to you, and I never really thought of myself as um, like a leader in the traditional sense, but I am. I've kind of grown into a leadership role. I look at this podcast as a force for positive change, and I'm trying to build a community of like-minded people in different diverse fields and niches, right? Because I can't know everything about everything. That's kind of impossible. But what I can do is I can provide a platform or a forum for people in those different diverse fields and niches to talk about what they're passionate about, what they're doing. And I think by creating those Venn diagrams of people doing interesting and cool things, the doomer bloomers of this world uh, will really come into their own, because it really starts with um, finding that community. For me, like I've struggled since my teenage years uh, to find a community. I think, um, and I've really embraced podcasting as my, like, this is what I was put on this earth to do. And I've really leaned into that. Besides what I do outside of my regular work, like I'm in renewable energy, and I want to make the world a better place through renewable energy. Um, but this has been the platform for me to connect with people like you, James, that are your kingdom entrepreneurship. Like, to me, that's just a fascinating idea, because it blends the best of two worlds: entrepreneurship with spiritual awakening and realization of service, and living your life from a place of service versus a place of self-interest. Because if you're always worried about what you are going to get out of something, then ultimately you're doing yourself a disservice. You can't be the best version of yourself. You can't be the best business, and you're not providing you're not providing the best value, because you're always thinking about how am I going to benefit versus how are other people going to benefit. And the people who end up either the most materially wealthy or the most spiritually wealthy are the people who are always trying to help and better other people's over themselves. Um, and
Completely.
that's something that I kind of had to learn, because it's not taught in school. It's not taught mostly. You're not taught in your family, really. It wasn't until, I mean, like you said, like my awakening happened around the same time as yours did in 2017, when I started reading the Tao Te Ching, um, and coming more into alignment of a place of not being in self interest, but being from a place of virtue, and realizing that if you're from a place of virtue, and letting go of the outcome of things, you're ultimately going to show up and be more in alignment with what you're supposed to be doing. And that's that was a revelation for me, in a sense. Um, so the other question I had for you, um, is, if you could step into my shoes, what would you have asked yourself that I haven't already done so? So, do you have a question that you would pose to yourself that would draw out some sort of um, response that could be of service?
Yeah. So for me, this goes into my faith. And it really, the question that I would be asking is, what is my true purpose? And what is the mission for my life? Because something you talked about earlier is that intersection of what is God's plan and what is our plan. And
Yeah.
something that I like to share with people, I grew up actually doing collegiate style wrestling since 5 years old. And I excelled in it because I wrestled a 300-pound gorilla at home every day. And so when I wrestled a 50 or 60-pound person, that was it, no problem. But I say all that to say that I never was really super into WWE or WWF, but there was a person that I always loved watching as a kid. And that person was Dwayne The Rock Johnson. And one of the reasons why I loved so much watching him was not only was he so charismatic and gregarious and such an awesome actor and funny, he had these really cool sayings. And one of my favorite sayings that he used to always say, and it's still one of my favorite sayings to this day, is to know your role and shut your mouth. And the way that this plays out into what I'm talking about in this answer is that I think a lot more people could find a lot more happiness if they could just listen to God saying that to them. Like, hey, buddy, know your role and shut your mouth. Meaning, go internally to find out what we're supposed to be doing and stop trying to act like we're a director or a producer in God's movie. We're literally one of the characters. He wrote the script eons ago. He already saw how this thing plays out. Why are we trying to give creative input on this scene that we're in? He needs us to just shut our mouth and read our lines, if you will. Now, I say that, I don't mean for people to not pursue what's in their heart, but what I'm going with that is to challenge what society and the way that most of the world lives and tries to tell other people to live, i.e., self-serving. What can I get? What can I do? And challenge that by pressing in on how we can best be of service to others and just fulfill that role. And it's a really cool thing, what you were talking about. A lot of people have to come to this discovery on our own. And it really is part of each individual's hero journey. I believe in the saying that all paths lead back to Rome, right? All roads lead back to Rome. So however you get there doesn't really matter as long as you get there. And in this regard, by asking ourselves, what is my true calling? Why am I here on this earth? The reason that we're here on this earth is to love people. It's literally to love everyone we come in contact with. It doesn't mean we have to necessarily lead them. It doesn't even necessarily we have to really like them, but we must love them and we must show them love. And so that's really at the heart of where I'm at in my life, is leading with love and operating from a place of vulnerability and authenticity. Because it's a really cool thing when we go to work serving the world and we take those masks off and we stop trying to pretend to be someone we're not to get something we think we want. It's really amazing how the world will deliver happiness to us. And it's also amazing that we can wake up in the morning and not be living our life against the grain. The place that I see this happen most often, and I was guilty of it as well, is in the dating realm. We see something that we think we want, and so we pretend to be what that thing wants in order to get that. But then what happens is it's against the grain because that's not who we truly are. So then there's conflict, there's arguments, there's disagreement, there's jealousy, there's envy, there's all of these things that happen because, again, be careful what we wish for. It might not be what we really wanted. So I really believe that operating from a place of vulnerability and authenticity, yes, it might be slower in the beginning. We might not be having as much traction or momentum as the world would try to tell us to have. But in the end, it will be lasting traction and lasting momentum, and it will lead us to a place of fulfillment and true happiness in our lives.
Well said. Well said. And then if you were trying to give, I mean, because you do this on a probably a fairly regular basis. I'm not sure what sort of clients you talk to, but if you were trying to give a somebody who is stuck in a doomer mindset, like in addiction and pain and trauma, if you were trying to give them advice, where where would you where would you try, like, your best advice for somebody who is in the doomer mindset? What would you tell them just to kind of, uh, I mean, give them the best advice to try to get back onto the path, so to speak?
Sure. This is an awesome question, and I love to share this with people. Again, it's part of everyone's journey. So first and foremost, it's understanding that actually the obstacles in front of us are a blessing when we see them the right way, and they're a blessing because once we overcome them, that becomes our testimony to help other people do the same. So the way that I like to share this with people is what we call step zero. And step 0 for us is self-awareness. And the way that I like to share this with people is that if anybody's ever used a GPS of any sort, the first thing that it asks you to put in is your destination. Where are you going, right? And then the next thing it asks you before it can give you any directions is what? Where are you right now, right? So if I'm trying to get from, let's say, San Diego to San Francisco, and I put in San Francisco as my endpoint, but then I put in like Dallas, Texas as my starting point, I'm not going to get very accurate directions to get there, right? So self-awareness is the step 0 to any program, to any bit of self-improvement or, self-development. And the next thing that I always get asked is, well, that's all great and well. I understand what self-awareness is and how it's step 0. How do I get there? Well, the best ways that we've found to increase self-awareness is actually self-assessment, because I could tell you something that I observe about you, but you know you better than anybody ever will. And we have this little thing called ego and pride. And whenever someone tries to share something about us, I still do it to this day. I get a little defensive. As much as I've done this work to overcome this, I can still get kind of defensive and take it personally. But one of the best ways to disarm that response is to just take a look at ourselves internally and talk to ourselves about ourselves. Specifically in the addiction and alcoholism realm, you can't tell an alcoholic they're an alcoholic or an addict they're an addict, right? One of the best ways I heard it was from a gentleman who I ran into in an AA meeting one time. And the way he described it was, if you go to a cancer ward in a hospital and you go up to people who have stage 4 terminal cancer and you tell that person, hey, I have the cure for your disease, that person will pretty much beg you and be willing to do anything in the world to find out what that cure is. But if, let's say, an hour later, you're in the same hospital and you go down to the drunk tank in the ER and you go up to an alcoholic that's in there with alcohol poisoning and you tell that person, hey, I have the cure to your disease. You want to know what they'll say? F you, I don't have no disease. You're the sick one, right? So you can't actually tell somebody that stuff because it'll fire them up defensively. So the best thing to do is self-assessment. Get out a piece of paper and a pen. Write down what's going on. Write down what your thoughts are. And one of the best things to do if somebody's in a doomer mindset is to be aware of if we are acting like a victim. Something happened to me then, so now I am this way. I used to be like this. I took drugs and drank alcohol because I experienced so much trauma and physical abuse and pain as a child. I thought, hey, I shouldn't have to experience pain as an adult, right? And that's not the way that it works. So the first step is self-assessment. Do some journaling, do some introspection, literally just go stand in front of a mirror for 10 minutes and just look at yourself in your eyes and talk to yourself and ask yourself, what the heck is going on? Do it by yourself. People around you might think you've lost your mind, but this is a good self-awareness exercise. The next thing is self-discovery. Once you've done that self-assessment, dig into that assessment. Discover what's going on, what led you into that place, and discover things that you could do to get yourself out of that place. And then third, the thing that you can do is go talk to someone. Find a coach, find a mentor, find a spiritual, a prayer partner, something like this to help have them ask you questions and give them your self-assessment and self-discovery so they can get up to speed with the things you've already discovered about yourself, and they can help ask you questions that will further that. Now, I do want to take a step back here too. If somebody is really in the pit of it and they're really struggling, sometimes one of the best things to do is to reach out to another person, period. And you don't even have to reach out to that person and ask them for help. You could just reach out to that person and just ask them to hang out or just talk to you on the phone for 30 minutes. Because oftentimes what happens is the enemy is the father of lies, and the enemy will tell us a lie, and the enemy will get us to keep that lie between us and the enemy. And he'll put us in this vacuum, and we'll think, oh, I can't tell anybody this stuff about me because then they won't like me, or this and that and the other thing, or they'll judge me. And really, it's just a lie that the enemy is trying to keep us down with. And what happens is when we actually speak with another human being, most humans are actually great people at their core. They might do dumb stuff like we all do, but most people are good people at their core. And what happens is when we speak that lie out loud to another human being, somebody that we trust and somebody that cares about us, they help bring our awareness to the fact that, yo, dude, that's a lie. You're listening to a lie. Stop believing the lies. So those are just a couple of things that people can do to break themselves out of their current pattern and interrupt it in order to get themselves back on the path.
Yeah, back. Well, I mean, again, well said.
Thank you.
Um, uh, and how can one be of service to their community and the world?
Yeah.
How?
So this is, yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, um, I follow the Tao Te Ching, and it's great that you talked about servant leadership, but not everyone can be a leader, right? Some people are made to be leaders, some people are made to be more followers. But I think everyone can contribute in some small way in their own way. So how would you say, like, how can someone be of service in their family or their community or the world, right?
Yeah, great question. And this is actually one of the most recommended things to do if a person is in a doomer mindset or they are in the ditch currently. If you're feeling depressed or feeling low, one of the best ways to feel better is to go and help somebody else work on their problems. So, first and foremost, now that things have kind of passed with the lockdown, at least for now here in the States, you can get out of your house and you can go find someone to help. Go find a volunteer group to become a part of. There's something here in the States called the Kiwanis Club, and these are people that they actually organize volunteer efforts. If a person wants to get involved in more of a faith based experience, go to your local church. Whether you've had a good experience or a bad experience with faith or religion, most churches and most church leaders are good people, and you can actually go there and ask them how you could best be of service. One of the other great ways that people can be of service is literally just to share a smile and a friendly hello with a stranger. So maybe you're not feeling that well, go to a coffee shop and have the intention that you're going to talk to at least two people when you go to the coffee shop. And the conversation you might have might be, "Hi, how's it going? Great, awesome, have a good day." And just in that little teeny instance of getting outside your own head and engaging another human being, it's going to help to shift your energy. I mentioned earlier on towards the beginning of our call here that the best way to change our state is to change our physiology. So by actually getting up and moving our body, we can begin to change the state that's going on in our mind. So I always look for volunteer opportunities. I'm a little bit probably weird and different than a lot of people. I like to just walk up and pray on people. I just like to walk up to total strangers and just say, "Hey, what's your name?" "Oh, hey, Bob. Hey, Bob, I'm James. Do you mind if we say a prayer together real quick?" Most people are not going to tell you to F off. If they do, guess what? It has more to do with them than it does to do with you. So, just approaching people in public, going and finding ways to interact with other human beings and finding ways to give back. The most finite and valuable resource that we have in this world is our time, and that is the greatest gift that we could give anyone. A lot of people think I want to donate money and I want to give this and that and the other thing. The best thing we could give is our time. So go get involved in a Big Brothers Big Sisters program. Go, if you live in an urban area, just go walk up to a homeless person and just talk to them for a few minutes, because it also will help give us the perspective of, what, no matter how bad it seems, it could always be worse. And there's a lot of people out there dealing with a lot heavier stuff than we are. We just get all up in our own head thinking that we've got it so bad, when in fact we are not the Lone Ranger.
Yeah, I think yeah, I mean, I think we go through a lot of life thinking that we have to do everything and that we have to be the Lone Ranger, but even the Lone Ranger had Tonto,
Yeah,
right?
exactly.
So like, I know it sounds kind of cliche, but you're basically saying reach out and touch someone, whether that's, like you say, say hello in a coffee shop, or just pick up the phone, or whatever it is. And then you kind of said it earlier, it comes back to love. Like, if nothing else, just remember that it's your job, or it's your obligation to love everyone. like, and even if you don't like the person, you can still love them, which is
Totally.
which is
That's
kind of a
challenging.
weird. It's a
Yeah,
weird
yeah,
thing it's a weird
it
thing to
is.
say, but it's true.
It is.
Um, and I I'm really glad that we connected, James. Like
Same.
you're a very very positive uh, and very down to earth sort of guy, which I
Thanks, man.
I'm really, like I said, I feel very blessed and very fortunate to do this podcast because I get to talk with and meet interesting people from so many different walks, doing very interesting and different things. Um, and it gives me like uh, it gives me like a newfound sense of, oh, that was something I didn't think about, or hey, that's a different way of looking at something that I didn't necessarily or didn't necessarily think about before. I like the I like to learn new things, and I hope that by having an 45 minutes to an hour conversation, we can you know at least get a good idea of of this is a different way to live your life, or a different way of thinking about things. Um and we're always I think we're always looking to be better. I don't think human beings want to go backwards. We're not I don't think we're programmed that way. I think we're programmed to try and become the best version of ourselves through different experiences, right? And um I, like you kind of said it with the COVID situation. It's been a challenging 18 months, I think, for a lot of people, but I think there's been a lot of good things to come out of it. Um, the technology is getting better now that we can connect over long distances, which we couldn't do before. There's new and different ways of doing business that are helping, I think, helping connect versus pushing people apart, which is pretty cool. Um, the next question is kind of tongue in cheek, but I always ask it just for fun. Uh, what is your zombie plan? Do you have a zombie plan?
Yeah, sure. Yeah. So this is actually part of what I'm working on currently. I'm in the process of scouting some land to build an off-grid ranch, fully sustainable off-grid ranch. So, whenever the
Nice.
next crazy whatever happens, whether it be the zombie apocalypse or, whatever, COVID lockdown round 2, 3, or 4, and, the world comes crashing down, I'm going to be set up with my place, and you're welcome to come. And, have the resources available and on hand to be fully self-sustaining and to not be dependent on any one power source or any food source or any water source other than my own self-sustaining sources. And I also, part of that plan is aligning with other people in a small group to have a group of people ready to go so that we've got the ability to go from location to location and we can actually rally the troops. So, again, whether it be the zombies or the aliens or, whatever else in between may happen, it's always good to have the plan, to have the resources that are renewable, because you could only save up so much food and water. What's more important than saving it up is having a supply, having a renewable supply of it. And then it's also having the team of people lined up to be able to rely on to help us through those times. One of the keys in here throughout our conversation that I've been sharing with people is getting in community. One of the worst things a person could do is be totally by themselves and just locked away, which is one of the big struggles you mentioned of the COVID situation. I really truly believe that the COVID situation is similar to money. Money only makes people more of who they are. I believe the COVID situation made people more of who they are. If you were a happy person, you became happier. If you were terribly unhappy, you either continued being unhappy or you figured out, hey, I got to find a better way to live life. and now you are figuring out a way to live and be happy. So, and my other big plan is to just be aligned spiritually with our creator, so that I know that if and when they do come for me and I pass on from this life, I'm going to end up where I want to be.
Like you're like a man after my own heart. Like you're go live on a ranch and learn how to grow your own food and have sustainable resources. I mean, to me that's like a dream life, you know.
Same.
So I would love to be part of your zombie plan. That's kind of what I do in my day job is I help people go off the grid and either through solar or wind or hydro. So I would be more than willing to help you out, try and get your ranch set up. I'm not sure where you want to start the ranch, but
Awesome.
definitely definitely use me as a consultant, and I would
I will.
I would love to come down and help you get started on that.
I definitely will. And there's another reason why we connected.
Obviously. And speaking of connecting, if listeners want to contact you online, is there a coaching link, online website, or social handle they can reach you at, James?
Yeah, most definitely. So our website is awarenesselevation.com. We're in the process of publishing several free resources for people to be able to learn about kingdom entrepreneurship and become more self aware to thrive in their vocation. I stay pretty active on Instagram, even though it's like the worst organic reach of any platform nowadays. But Instagram is awareness_elevation. And I stay pretty active on LinkedIn at James F. Pyle. James F is in Foxtrot, my last name, P is in Paul, YLE.
Nice. And I'll put all those in the description of the podcast as I normally do. Great having you along for the journey. Sharing is caring, as I like to say. Um, if you are listening to this podcast out there, you can always talk or reach out to us at the Doomer Podcast on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook. Uh, and just remember that you're not alone. And there are people out there doing interesting things, and you can always reach out to them for help or extra encouragement or motivation. So don't don't feel that you are alone out there in the universe, because there are other people out there, uh, maybe going through similar or different things that can help you get out of that funk. All right. Thanks, James, and have a great and prosperous day wherever you are.
Thanks for having me. It's been a pleasure.
If you enjoyed this content with James Pyle today, I would recommend that you check out his website, awarenesselevation.com. Try to get your own self-awareness to another level. If you are trying to level up in life, become a doomer to a bloomer, please do not hesitate to reach out to me directly, Will S., at the Doomer Podcast on all social handles. We have a Patreon page and a coaching program available, the 10 Pillars Framework for Success, Life, and Business and Relationships. Transform yourself to a doomer to a bloomer. You can go to www.thedoomerbloomerpodcast.com/support to join our Discord group. Become a member today. GoFundMe page is there. And our Patreon has 3 levels. Level 1 is access to the merchandise store. Level 2 is Alexa level subscriber. Level 3 is our coaching program. And if you want direct one-on-one contact with me, it's best to book my time directly through my calendar link. Please retweet, share, like, and subscribe to the podcast on all of your all the platforms. If you really enjoyed this content, please share it as hashtag self-awareness. Have yourself a great and prosperous day. Bye now.